Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum, and I'm here today at guns.com taking a look at some of the cool stuff that they have in their warehouse. And among other things, I found this factory mistake Taurus 856. It's got a 3-inch barrel on it still, but it's only supposed to have a 2-inch barrel. This is what it should look like, ignoring the difference in finish colors. And this makes a fantastic opportunity for us to talk about firearms importation law. So, in 1968, the Gun Control Act was passed. It was a large piece of legislation that had implications with a whole bunch of different areas of firearm law and firearm ownership. One of them was based on restricting importation of firearms into the US, and specifically, it prohibited the importation of guns that were not deemed to be of sporting purpose. And it proceeded to define that. No, actually, it didn't define it at all. It just said that. Done. So what is sporting purpose? How do you determine sporting purpose? Now, that question had to be answered by, of all people, the IRS. Because the ATF didn't exist at this point, the IRS in the Department of the Treasury was the organization that ran most gun laws because, for example, like the National Firearms Act was a tax law. It was administered by the IRS, and the same thing happened with the Gun Control Act in this particular circumstance. So the IRS went through and came up with a list of factors. Now, I should say, there are different regulations, there's different judgment applied to rifles, pistols, and shotguns. When it came to pistols, the IRS came up with a list of what it considered relevant factors by which you could assess if a pistol was sufficiently sporting or if it was a Saturday night special, which was a term all the rage at the time, which essentially referred to small, inexpensive guns, because shockingly, it was small, concealable, inexpensive guns that were most used in crimes. We'll ignore the fact that they were also the most convenient guns for people to use in self-defense, especially poorer people. But that Saturday Night Special was like the assault weapon of its day in terms of political terminology. That's what, boy, they really wanted to go after Saturday Night Specials, especially when Robert Kennedy was assassinated with a Saturday Night Special. Small, cheap 22 caliber revolver. And so when the import laws were set up, or import guidelines, because they're not actually written in law, they're just administrative guidelines, with semi-auto pistols, there were a whole bunch of factors of length and weight and target features. Revolvers were a little bit simpler, and most importantly here, revolvers with barrels less than 3 inches were just straight up prohibited from importation, no matter what. So, how does Taurus sell us a 2-inch barreled revolver made in Brazil today? Now, let's take a look, and I'll show you. All right, so that's what I want. IRS says no, can't have a 2-inch barrel. Okay, well, you know what? The barrel's just threaded on here. Why don't I bring this in as a 3-inch barreled pistol and then also send over a batch of 2-inch barrels, because there's nothing in the law that says I can't import just parts. And when the guns get here to the US, I will take off the 3-inch barrel, I will put on a 2-inch barrel, I will sell the gun like this, because having been assembled in the US, this is perfectly legal now. I'll ship the 3-inch barrels back to the country of origin, in this case, Brazil. This is literally what Taurus did for many years, for like 30 years. And then those 3-inch barrels get assembled onto the next batch of guns, and we repeat the process. However, in the 1990s, Taurus realized that there was a more economical way to do this. The problem was, by reusing those 3-inch barrels, there was wastage involved. You know, every so often you'd mess up the threads on them. The labor of removing and replacing the barrels and timing them correctly was a thing, and they realized it would be cheaper and easier to invest in some tools to just cut 3-inch barrels down into 2-inch barrels. So starting in the 90s, Taurus went ahead and started shipping 2-inch guns like this with a 3-inch barrel. As soon as it gets here into the US, they clamp it off, put it in a specialized CNC machine, and whoop, just lop the front inch off. And now you have a 2-inch barrel. And in fact, if we look at this, you'll notice that this crown area isn't black. It's not finished. That's because it's raw metal, because it used to be like this and got chopped off. This happens to be an example that the factory goofed. like it got set in the wrong box, and it was shipped out without the barrel having been cut off. Like I said at the beginning, I found this here in the guns.com warehouse. It's the third or fourth one of these that they've gotten over the years. Like, this happens more often than you might expect. And I think it is a fantastic example of showing the loophole workaround for this 2-inch importation ban. Like, it's not really accomplishing a whole lot. All they're doing is shipping the gun over like this and chopping the end off. So is this, to my mind, like, is this valuable as a collector's piece because it is a factory screw up? Maybe a little bit. I think it would be more so if it were a more collectible brand. If you had a Smith & Wesson like this, it would definitely be fairly collectible as a goof. But of course, Smith & Wesson is manufacturing their guns in the US, so they don't have to do this. It's only things that are imported from outside that have to go through this sort of nonsense. If you're still watching now, obviously you find the nuances of historical firearms legislation details interesting, which you should, because they're still relevant today, because this sort of stupidity still impacts what guns can be imported and what can't. And it has these really weird echoes and reverberations through firearms design. And the same is absolutely true for semi-auto pistols, rifles, and shotguns, which frankly all deserve videos on their own. I'll see if I can dig up some interesting factory anomalies that show some of the sausage making behind import of some of those other guns. Anyway, obviously this is all totally pointless today because you can make a 2-inch revolver in the United States just fine. You're just not allowed to import a 2-inch revolver. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.